The videotape revolution brought a new appreciation for horror films.
It was like this dam broke.
And it changed everything.
Terrific! I think everybody with a camera and $10 made their own horror movies back then.
It was rental that made the thing explode.
This hopped up exploitation, a rawness and a grittiness.
Big and bold, over the top, and we were at a party.
My mom would have died if she knew some of the stuff that I was bringing home and watching.
Too many bones.
This is the end of the road for In Search of Darkness. Well, for the 80s one, because they're making one for the 90s right now, which, you know, I'm just going to say this right now. Once the pre-orders are available for that, I'm hands down getting it. So this is the finale of the In Search of Darkness trilogy for exploring horror in the 1980s. And boy, was it was the grand finale. It was where we went, all right, here's everything else. And man, was it was emotional once the credits started rolling, and I was like, oh man, it's the end. But then they're like, no, it's not. And I just got happy. But so this one, you know, we in this one, they talk about the VHS boom, where not just people at home could get a hold of like those VHS camcorders and would film their own movies and sell them, and they were specifically released on VHS, and people went out and bought them. So you discovered like these little gems, and they show some of them in this, and I'm going, wow, that looks really cheap, but I understand what they were doing. They talk about they talk about, you know, how in the 70s, you know, a lot of like homosexuality became more present in not just movies but in horror movies. But then once, you know, AIDS was revealed to everybody, they basically got put back in the closet, and they go deep on this one, especially since this one's 6 hours and the others are 4. So I was like, this is the grand finale. This is everything they were building up to, and man, was it an emotional and incredible journey. Once I saw the trailer for part 1, I immediately pre-ordered it, and I'm so glad I did, because, you know, me doing, you know, making reviews, but it's also because, you know, I love film, and especially I love the horror genre, because, you know, with the easiest, I'm going to quote John Carpenter. He says that the two hardest genres to do are comedy and horror. The easiest is drama. Drama, you can put just 2 or a couple people in a room and just throw in a subject and have them snip at each other. That's easy. Comedy, you have to have comedy and horror, you have to have timing. And if you're just throwing things, like for comedy, you know, if you throw a joke and doesn't land and immediately just make a fart noise, you're just trying anything you can to make somebody laugh. And to me, the best comedies, they take their time. You know, they really do. And horror is no exception. The best horror movies take their time with what they're building up. And that's why the genre is just so interesting to me, and why it's so fascinating. And especially since, you know, horror, I've always seen, you know, anybody I talk to, you know, as I was growing up, a lot of people that I talked to said that, oh, I don't like horror movies because they're too scary. And I'm like, but have you walked around the world? Do you see what's going on right now? What's happening in like society? That's more scarier. Now, that's more scarier than anything a filmmaker or a writer or a movie crew can put on screen and show you. And so that's why I find horror movies cool. And especially since with horror movies, if you're too freaked out or you're too scared, you can easily hit a button, either turn off the TV and walk away, or pause it and then stop it and then come back if you want to finish the road. With the world, you cannot put the world on pause. So everything that is scarier in real life, you can't pause it. And that's scarier to me. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've listened to real life horror stories and some of them have freaked me out because it's like I'm putting myself in the storyteller's shoes. And I'm like, yeah, if I saw that, I'd be freaked out. This is why I would just go like, all right, it's either, you either hide and you need to plan out your tactics. But because the real world is scarier than any filmmaker can show you. But, back to this, I'm going off. But I'm just expressing why, horror is somewhat an underrated genre, but at the same time it isn't. It's a very powerful one. Horror is able to show us, look at Get Out. Look at Jordan Peele's Get Out. That film shares with us the horrors of not just meeting your significant other's parents, but it's dealing with racism. That's real life horror, and the problems that society has. And horror is able to make something scary out of, real world issues extremely well. Like go back to, like I said, Get Out is about racism. If you look at, Brian Yesna's Society, which was in the 80s, that one, number one, it's just a weird and kind of gross film, but it's a great look at, the rich and like secret societies and, how powerful they think they are because they're so wealthy. Horror is able to do that extremely well. It's able to take all those real world issues and look at it in a new light and go like, yep, see this? Yeah, you see all this? Like even Carpenter's They Live, you think like, yeah, on the outside it's like, oh, it's an alien invasion film where the bulky hero goes and saves the day, but underneath it, it's like, oh, this has to do with politics, and it's powerful. Horror movies can teach you stuff. Horror movies have definitely taught me things, not just in a filmmaking point of view, but also in a real world issue or real world thing. Because I can't tell you how many times I've watched a horror movie and went like, yep, see, if it was pitch black and there was just two doors and one of them was definitely the leading you to your doom, and the character goes, oh, I'm going to go to that one. I'm like, yeah, you're done. Like, you're so stupid. This is not real life. In real life, you would totally be, first of all, you'd be, pooping your pants because you're so scared. But, you would try to live. And so there's all these times when I've listened to real life horror stories and I've been like, yeah, I would have been out at this point. I would have been out at that point. I would have went the other way. And that's just how powerful horror is. And That's why I love looking at 80s horror movies, because you'll get your mindless slasher sequel, but you also get some really interesting gems in there, and you're like, oh well, this is a lot more deeper than I thought it was. This is super cool. So yeah, In Search of Darkness, it not only opened up my eyes to what movies were in the 1980s, what real life was like in the 80s, but it opened up a whole new world to me, and I'm super happy for that, especially since I want to be able to be involved with making movies. And I loved every minute of this entire trilogy. I loved every minute of it. This absolutely gets amazing. This whole trilogy gets amazing. And I fell in love with horror even before watching this, but then this just opened my eyes, and it's like, see, this is why horror needs to be more appreciated. Like I said, I feel like it's a very underrated genre, but at the same time, it's a very powerful one too. So if somebody from the Academy for the Oscars is listening to this, get more horror movies nominated. So I absolutely love this trilogy. This was a fantastic end to this trilogy, and I cannot wait for more from these guys. So thank you very much. And yeah, I'll be watching In Search of Darkness 1990 to 1994, whenever that comes out.
We were just kids having fun.
We're making movies. We're doing what we love.
And that's why we love these movies so much to this day.
People should champion anything that they enjoy. That's how you keep things alive.
What do you want?
I want you to stop me. These movies aren't going to go away.
It's one of the things that I am most proud of doing. I'm very nostalgic for the 80s.
I could watch 80s horror movies on a loop forever.
Probably made me into the weirdo that I am today. I don't know.